watching PowerNation.
Welcome to PowerNation Builds. Today, it's all about those second chances. From the junkyard to the boulevard, the guys are towing the line. Here's Carcass.
Jimmy and I are in car guy paradise. We're at Bobby White Motors here in Columbia, Tennessee, and pretty much everywhere we turn, there's something interesting to look at. Kind of like this Spider-Man Firebird thing.
Jeremy and I couldn't really decide what we wanted to take home with us, and then we ran across this crusty old square body.
Yeah, it's a mid-70s, late 70s C-30. Somebody's got a wrecker body on the back of it. I don't know, this thing's got a ton of potential.
And the nice thing is that this is probably one of the most complete vehicles in the salvage yard. We've came across a few that could maybe run and drive under their own power, but I think this is our best option.
This truck checks all the boxes that Jimmy and I are looking for. It's a square body Chevy pickup. It's got the classic patinaed exterior, and it's one of the most popular trucks being put back on the road.
This is the most unique thing we could have found in a salvage yard.
Right.
So it's kind of like, how different do you want to be?
No, totally. I'm on board if you're on board.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take a shot at it. It should come out pretty nice.
It's gonna last a little bit. That should be enough. All right, cool. Go for it. Cranks. Hey, there's fuel up in the fuel filter. Keep doing that.
All right.
It runs.
It's a little bit lumpy.
You want to see if it moves?
Yeah, you
I
want
gotta
to close
take
the
the
hood?
stuff out from under the hood, but let's see if it moves.
Yeah, close the hood and we'll see.
Oh, nice hood. It sounds terrible. Wow, look at this thing.
Let's see if the wrecker works.
Oh, I never thought of that. Will this sit here without rolling away?
Yeah, I got the e-brake on.
Oh, no, that's right, it works.
I think this is a clutch lever. I don't know.
Oh,
All right.
that, whatever he did was the wrong one.
Oh! All right.
Stop before it breaks. Okay, here. Now watch. Now we'll go down. I think. Okay, go down. Oh!
That's cool.
There's no way. Let's take her back to the shop.
We have some ideas for what we want to do with this unique find, like what we plan to do with the doors. We partnered with Wyotech to do some rebranding on this work truck. So we shipped the doors off to be worked on while we brainstormed some ideas for this truck.
And here's what we came up with. Our goal is to get this old square body back on the road and make it safe again. So the first thing we're gonna have to do is address the rusted out chassis under the bed out back. Those are the danger points, and those are the most important things to get fixed first.
Then we'll pump this old square body with a little more power and an automatic transmission to match. After some power upgrades, we'll move to the inside and spruce up this 50-year-old interior. We'll do this by tackling the floor repairs first. Then we'll throw in a new dash, new instrument cluster, a steering wheel, and a nice seat to match.
Finally, we'll tackle the wheels and tires with a rattle can refresh, turning back the clock on this old work truck. Well, at least in the wheel department.
This all starts with some disassembly.
Up next, our Junkyard Jewel is ready for some heavy-duty rust redemption.
The patinaed look of this truck is why Jimmy and I fell in love with it. It's why we pulled it out of the junkyard. But the question here is, what are we going to do with this thing? Well, we're going to give it a second chance at life. We're going to put it back on the road. But the real issue here is rust. There's a big difference between cosmetic rust and structural rust. We could come in, cut the bad metal out, and replace it with some good steel, or we could just cut the back half of this truck off and start over again. And that's what Jimmy and I are going to do.
So now, where exactly do we cut the chassis? The closer that we get to the back of the cab, the metal becomes relatively less pitted or not pitted at all, and that's a great starting point for us to make a cut.
Oh, yeah.
For our new chassis section, we're going to be nesting a new piece of C-channel in the existing piece of C-channel on the truck.
For the straight section that will go over the axle, we're using a piece of 4x2 1/8-inch wall rectangular tubing, and we're cutting it to 56 inches.
Now that we've attached our rectangular tubing to our C-channel, we need to make some gussets. We're going to make these out of 3/16 steel and cut them out on the bandsaw.
With our gussets getting their final welds, we'll need to line up our new frame rails so we can build out our cross members. For our first cross member, we're using the same 4x2 tubing we've been using throughout the process.
We're adding a second one inside of the C-channel, so this will require a different length of tubing. There's one last thing we're going to add before we can call this done. A gusset made from 3/16 steel that will help add some strength around the leaf spring hangers.
Holy cats, man, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm done, so I need some help moving it for a test fit.
That sounds good. Which way, left or right?
That way.
This way.
Easy.
With our new frame section in place, we'll pull a quick measurement to make sure that the back half of the chassis is straight with the front half.
97 3/4. Weld it up.
The last thing to do is weld this chassis together, making it just as strong, if not stronger than the original. And this gives us the perfect platform to set the wrecker body back on this truck and one step closer to getting it back on the road. The new springs that we're installing on the tow truck are definitely heavy duty enough to tow a vehicle. These are 9-pack leaf springs with a 3,500 pound rating for each spring pack.
Many hands make light work when rolling a giant dually axle under a truck. Now, we measured the wheelbase prior to cutting off the rear end of the chassis, so we have a good idea where to set this for now.
We're measuring from the cut line to the center bolt hole of the leaf spring hanger. This will ensure that we tack the leaf spring hanger in the same area as our rusted out frame section.
Should we see if it fits? This spring hanger is about 1 inch wider than the cab and chassis spring hangers. So that's just not going to work for what we have to do. So what we're going to do is take these back off. We're going to end up cutting about 1 inch out of the spring hanger, and then we're just going to weld them back right to the chassis, because that's what we were going to do in the first place.
Go this way? Yeah. Check that out.
That's perfect.
Awesome. This actually wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, and like everything fits pretty well.
Yeah. Now to mount the bed to the chassis, we're going to be using 2 existing bolts in the towing assembly. Now essentially, there's 2 sets of bolts that hold that towing assembly to the bed and then hold the bed to the chassis. You want to hold the bolts for me, Jimmy?
We're bolting the top plate to the bottom of the bed first because we already have the bed sitting where we want it. This will ensure that when we go to weld everything together, the supporting pieces will be located in the correct position.
Well, now that we know everything lines up, we're going to unbolt everything, pick the bed off of the chassis, weld up our rear mounts, and give everything a nice shiny coat of paint.
With everything welded up, we'll slap on a coating of paint to prevent rust and reassemble the rear end of our tow truck.
Coming up, it's time for some more power, plus some upgrades that'll steer us in the right direction. Welcome back to PowerNation Builds. It's time now to return to Carcass.
The engine in our tow truck is a 305, and let's face it, this thing came out of a junkyard. We don't know if it's ever been taken care of.
Get that junk out of here.
Now the motor came out of that pretty easy, but now we got to scavenge the motor out of Frankenregal.
We've had the 350 Chevy in our Frankenregal since the beginning, and we know exactly the conditions it's been operated in and how well it's been taken care of.
All clear?
Yep.
With our engine finally mounted, it's time to install the B&M transmission that we picked up from Holley Performance. Now to get this installed, we removed the old transmission crossmember, giving us plenty of room to maneuver. Our Matco Tools transmission jack makes easy work moving the 150-pound transmission. And with all the holes lined up, we'll marry the trans to the engine.
We have one more step left to do, and that's to install a compatible crossmember for this transmission. We picked up a universal crossmember from Summit Racing. We were able to use one of the existing bolt holes from the original crossmember, but we had to drill the remaining bolt hole out with a 3/8 drill bit, allowing us to snug up the crossmember.
And since this one adjusts to the width of the chassis, we'll need to weld up the ends before calling this job done.
All these steering components are so worn out, they need to be replaced, so while the truck is still on the lift, we thought we'd do it now.
Yeah, that idler arm's completely worn out.
Yeah, we gotta tear this stuff out.
I've been working on installing all our new steering pieces that we got from Rock Auto. Now the idea is to set this back in the truck as one assembly minus one piece. We're gonna put the pitman arm on the gearbox to make sure that it's clocked in the right direction. But here's a little tip when setting up your tie rod ends. All you gotta do is measure between the 2 points and then transfer that measurement over to your new one. Then we'll just assemble everything and set it back in the truck, and that should get us pretty close. And at the end, we'll just set it on the ground, set it out for an alignment. But the first thing I gotta do is make sure this one matches that one. All right, I'm gonna grab that side.
We'll first bolt up the idler arm. This will be kept hand tight until all the components are put together.
Before we go any further, we're going to install the pitman arm. This is the only component that we'll tighten up for now.
The linkage gets attached to the pitman arm with a castle nut, and then each knuckle receives each end of our linkage assembly.
With everything loosely attached, we can start tightening all the castle nuts. Lastly, we'll add the cotter pins. And finally, snug up the adjustment sleeves.
With a little grease added to each ball joint, our tires can go back on, resulting in a better handling tow truck when we take it for its first test drive. Our new tank from Summit Racing slips right in,
and we hooked it up to the fuel pump.
With the flick of a key, we were able to crank up the engine and give it a couple pops of the throttle. We're going to use 3/16 steel to build out this rear end.
The first piece is what we'll build everything else off of. So to secure it, we'll tack it to the frame, but we're placing the tacks in an easy location for the future owner to easily cut away later.
With that in place, we can cut out the left piece. With the same 3/16 steel plate, we'll cut a 15 by 17 inch piece and fit it to the driver's side. With that tacked in, we can tackle the passenger side. This will receive a number of tacks as well.
Let me show you why we put a bevel on the pieces in a butt joint. And to first illustrate that, I'll show you an open corner joint. An open corner joint is nice because there's a lot of area for the filler material to go, and it gives us a nice line to follow when we're welding. And it gives a good space for the filler material to go. You'll notice as we weld up this butt joint, the filler material caps off the beveled area nicely, leaving a flatter profile than if we were just to butt the two pieces together. Rebuilding the chassis of this truck was necessary, and it left us with a less than ideal situation. But now with the back of this truck closed off, we're almost ready to tow some cars.
Coming up, it's out with the old and in with the new. Our junkyard tow truck gets put back into service.
This truck is almost ready to hit the road again, but we have to address one important feature to make this truck fully functional, and that's the winch system. The original winch on this truck was powered by a PTO, or power takeoff shaft, coming off of the manual transmission. Since we swapped over to an automatic, it doesn't have that feature. So what we're gonna do is replace this winch with an electric winch, which is nice because all we have to worry about is a battery.
That thing is so heavy. Can you grab that side? You good there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Come on, He-Man. Holy cow.
Check this out. This thing's gonna be functional and it's gonna look cool too.
Yeah, dude, nice job painting that to match the truck. That's awesome.
All right, hit it.
Check this out. We got a fully functional tow truck again. And we're almost ready to hit the road.
Yeah, that's a nice piece.
Wow, look at that thing.
You ready to go?
Yeah, but if it's cool with you, I think I'm gonna drive this time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. And I totally claimed this a parking spot.
Oh, that's neat.
Well, the truck is done and we're actually driving it now. It drives out good. It's got way more power than it did before.
Yeah.
Not that we could really base it off of much because we drove it onto the trailer, but I like it.
Yeah, me too. It's safe.
It's definitely safer than it was before.
Obviously, this truck isn't worth fully restoring, but you know, if you want to make it drivable, you know, the chassis stuff and everything, and putting floors in it, that's really as far as you want to take it. Otherwise, you know, it's just kind of too much time investment for what you're going to get out of it.
Right. So really, the truck, for what it was worth putting some time and effort into to get it back on the road, but to make it perfect,
just buy a better truck.
You just buy a better truck.
Yeah.
Well, the truck made it back with flying colors. But what in the world? Who is parked in our spot?
I believe that's Mr. Tommy.
Oh, we can take care of that. We got a tow truck.
Come on back. Crank it.
tow truck. Pretty convenient.
It's our parking spot now.
I guess, yeah. There's a sign there, isn't there?
Yeah, right?
What a great job our guys did resurrecting that old tow truck. And remember, you can always watch our other projects right here on PowerNation Builds.